Hello and welcome to ThePrint. This is Bidisha and you're watching Economics. Today, we are talking about a simple but important question. Should India push the rupee down on purpose to boost exports? Some people point to Taiwan, an economy that kept its currency very low for many years and built a big export industry. But what worked for Taiwan in the past is now creating serious problems for it. And this is where India must be careful. Not about normal ups and downs of the rupee, those are natural, but about avoiding an extreme artificial push to undervalue it. So, today on economics, we break down in simple language what Taiwan did, why it is struggling now, and what lessons India can take calmly, cautiously, and without alarm. Now, one may ask, what does keeping a currency low actually mean? A currency becoming stronger or weaker over time is normal. Every major economy experiences that. But Taiwan did something different. It actively stopped its currency from rising even as it became a rich, advanced, high tech society. Why does that matter? Because a very low currency has two simple effects. It makes exports cheaper for foreign buyers, but it also makes imports more expensive for local consumers. So exporters gain, but households end up paying more for everyday items, from food to fuel to gadgets. And this hit Taiwanese families especially hard because Taiwan imports a large share of its food and essential goods. It does not have enough natural resources or farmland to meet its own needs. So, items like cooking oil, grains, fruit, vegetables, and energy come from abroad. When the currency stays too low, all these imported essentials become more expensive and household budgets feel the strain. A little movement is fine, but Taiwan kept its currency extremely low for many, many years. And that extreme level is not normal movement. It is what created actual problems. Now, the question is, how low was Taiwan's currency kept? Different methods measure this differently. But one widely used measure, the GDP adjusted Big Mac index, suggests Taiwan's currency has been undervalued by around 55%. Not 5, not 10, around 55. That is an unusually large gap for a country that is already wealthy. And keeping the currency that low leads to big imbalances. Let's simplify the idea of a trade surplus. If a country sells far more to the world than it buys, it builds up a surplus. Taiwan's surplus is not just big, it is one of the largest in the world as a share of GDP. Its current account surplus, which includes goods, services, and investment flows, has been hovering around 15 to 16% of the entire economy. That is extraordinarily high for a rich country. This didn't happen because Taiwanese people suddenly stopped liking foreign goods. It happened because the weak currency made imports expensive, so families bought less. This is the key point. Extreme undervaluation helped exports but unintentionally held back domestic consumption. People simply had less purchasing power. Now let's address the financial risks created by this policy. Because Taiwan sells far more than it buys, it collects a lot of foreign money, primarily US dollars. And this money doesn't sit idle, it gets invested abroad. One sector in particular, Taiwan's life insurance industry holds a very large volume of foreign assets, estimated at well over 600 billion US dollars and approaching the $1 trillion mark when combined with other overseas holdings. But they owe money to Taiwanese citizens in Taiwan's currency. So imagine this simple situation. You borrow money in one currency, but your salary is in another. If the value of the salary currency suddenly drops, you can't repay your loan easily. That's the risk Taiwan faces. If currencies move in unexpected ways, these insurers could face heavy losses. This is a risk created not by normal currency changes, but by years of keeping the currency lower than what the economy naturally justified. Now, the question is why Taiwan can't easily change course now? Because fixing the problem isn't easy. If Taiwan lets its currency rise now, exporters might struggle, many small factories might suffer, and parts of the government budget, which rely on foreign asset income, would feel the pressure. So the system stays stuck, not because it's ideal, but because too much depends on it. This is Taiwan's challenge today. Now, the question is what India should and should not take from Taiwan. India's currency moves up and down naturally. That is normal. That is healthy. And that is how every large open economy functions. Nothing in Taiwan's story says normal depreciation is bad. Nothing says India's current trajectory is risky. Nothing says that rupee must be strong at all times. Instead, the lesson is much simpler. Don't force the currency down artificially and excessively for the sake of exports, because that is what creates problems Taiwan now faces. India has not done this, and India should not do this. Our growth relies heavily on domestic consumers, a young, expanding, confident population. Making imports deliberately expensive by pushing the rupee down would hurt these consumers. Normal ups and downs, absolutely fine. Extreme intentional undervaluation, that is what we should avoid. And so far, India has been quite careful here. The Reserve Bank of India allows the rupee to move with market forces. It steps in mainly to prevent wild swings, not to force the currency to stay weak. Our financial regulators have also been cautious about preventing currency risks in banks and insurers. So, India is in a good position, and the goal is simply to stay sensible and steady. Taiwan's model worked beautifully when it was a young, export led economy, but it stayed frozen even after Taiwan became a wealthy country. And today it is dealing with the side effects of that choice. India does not face those issues. India does not need to copy that path. It simply needs to avoid extreme artificial undervaluation while letting normal currency movements continue naturally. That is the quiet but powerful lesson Taiwan offers. The step is clear, the direction is clear, and now the task is simply to stay balanced.